Strategies with the Machina deck and showing you about a little bit more or less how it's played and a little bit why it's getting such the attention that it's getting. The main core of the deck is your monsters is going to be the green, red, and the yellow gadget that you see in front of you, along with the Machina Gear Frame and the Machina Fortress. Now, a lot of the combos that the gadgets benefit especially is that they're able to search each other out and add more monsters to your hand. So no matter what happens to them, if either of them get destroyed or removed from the field, it allows you to know that you'll have another monster in your hand. That's one reason why the deck is getting quite a bit of attention now, because a lot of the Smashing Ground going to 3 and Fissure being at 3 allows the monsters to continuously put pressure on your opponent and keep going at them without any fear of what happens to them, because you'll have another gadget to replace them. Now, what made this deck even more cheer is adding in the Gear Frame and the Machina Fortress to their lineup. The Machina Gear Frame will allow you to add the Machina Fortress to your hand. Now, the ruling, like I said before, with Machina Fortress is that if you hold both of these in your hand, with say two gadgets in your hand that you can't use, you can instantly discard the Machina Fortress and one of the spare gadgets that you have to special summon itself to the field because it was still existed in your hand. So you can basically discard him for it as your cost. Now that instantly allows you to get over certain threats and problems that you'll have, especially like bigger monsters. You can get rid of them instantly with the Fortress, and that helps to give the deck more purpose, especially if you have a hand with clogged gadgets that you can't use. And the Fortress puts use to them and allows you to even make bigger pushes with them. Now, what I like personally with this deck as well, like I said before, is the use of Solidarity. Now, Solidarity is going to give every single one of your gadgets 800 plus more. It's going to allow your green gadget to become a 22, your yellow to become 2000, and then your red to become 21. That gives a big push for all of them and makes your level 4 monsters that were originally small something now to fear about. Fortress also itself will become 3300, and in addition, your Gear Frame for level 4 will be 26, instantly able to get over a Stardust Dragon, and helps to further push a lot of different games with them. And Solidarity is a continuous card that only affects the machines on your side of the field, which makes it a really good problem card, for especially in the mirror match against your opponent, because there's not much they can really do to them. Now, with that card still sitting on the board, cards like Starlight Road become an instant action protection against any of the weaknesses that they'll have, referring anything to like Black Rose Dragon or referring to like Heavy Storm. So it's pretty, in my opinion, a pretty solid card, very overlooked, and is something that helps to push them to make them more of a threat to fear. Especially if you combo the entire deck together off of not just the gadgets, but the Gear Frame alone, comboed with 3 other certain cards, can work really well. Using Gear Frame, you can search instantly out for Machina Fortress, ditch 2 monsters that you're not, ditch itself and another monster to special summon it, and then drop a Solidarity into the mix, allowing him to be 26 and him to be 33. Now, if you have either of the Heavy Storm, Trunade or the Heavy Storm, you're allowed to make big pushes with this, clearing their back row and leaving only their monsters. Combining that with any of the other spell and trap removal, such as Smashing Ground or Fissure or even Deprison, you get rid of those threats and go further come at your opponent. Now, if your opponent has no protection, you hit them freely for 2600 with a Machina Gear Frame, dealing 2600 points of damage, knocking your opponent down to 54. Now, with that, their life is pretty much cut short once you hit with Machina Fortress. Now, combine that with limiter removal, you can get an instant game. Another cool thing to note too, though, is after you limiter removal your opponent, he's going to be a 6600 with Solidarity or 5000 without Solidarity. After you use limiter removal to pump all of your machines, main phase 2, don't forget about your Machina Gear Frame being able to equip to your Fortress, because the moment that happens, if limiter removal will try to destroy it, but the Gear Frame will get destroyed instead, leaving the Fortress at a 5000 attack points or 66, making it something really scary to be able to deal with. And it helps basically to push for a lot of the core points in the game, and that's why limiter becomes quite a bit of a problem against other players, because it helps further push in the game. Another combo point to note with this is that Machina Fortress, the ability to revive itself in the graveyard becomes a big issue, and whether you have to check more cards or less. Now, with the use of Machina Gear Frame able to search out any Machina monster in its name from your deck to your hand, I included the one Machina Force in the idea that it may seem like a dead card, but it does give purpose right away to Machina Fortress. You're able to use Machina Force to ditch its single card itself to revive the Fortress in your graveyard. That helps especially too if you have multiple copies of the fortress in hand. You chuck both of them as their cost, bring out one, and then you have your other one in your graveyard, and you just discard the force to bring out the second copy. And like I said before, it does help to further push for the game. And the force is not a necessary card. A lot of people are using Peacekeeper, but the force, I see, just helps make bigger pushes and allows less of a cost to bring out the fortress and makes a bigger push for plays. And then right now I'll show you guys a few of the test hands to get a good idea of what the deck looks at a turn 1 opening and kind of give a good idea of where it goes from there. Alright everyone, just showing you pretty much another part of the deck too, just kind of getting some more of an idea of how it'll look. We start off with Red Gadget, Smashing Ground, Giant Trunade, Solidarity, Limiter Removal, and Machina Gear Frame. Okay, this ideal opening will allow you to make very different plays. If you're going first or second, it allows you to do quite a bit of an opening and helps set up for a better play. If you're going first, the best bet would be to drop a Machina Gear Frame because it'll allow you to search out the Machina Fortress from your deck. So by doing that, you have an instant access to him. Now, like I said before, is that not many things can get over the Machina Gear Frame in the beginning, so it's actually a good setup for right now. So if you just leave it there, it'll be fine. Now, if your opponent still happens to get rid of it, then, like I said, it helps to further play cards like Solidarity and give them even more attack points. Okay, so then on an ideal, after this has happened and your opponent decides just to set 2 cards or just set a monster in a backfield, you'll be fine. The next card you'll draw will be another Machina Gear Frame. Now, in this situation here, your opponent has a set card, has a monster, and other cards set on the board. Okay, what you want to do now is you want to summon a red gadget now from your hand to the field, and add the yellow gadget to your hand. Okay, so now you have both Machina Gear Frame and red gadget on the field with the yellow gadget, Machina Gear Frame, Machina Fortress, Limiter Removal, Giant Trunade, Smashing, and Solidarity. Okay. Your opponent only has a set monster, you play Giant Trunade. Return the set spell and trap they have back to their hand. They just have a set monster. Now, using the Machina Fortress's ability, you'll discard a monster in your hand, 2 monsters in your hand that add up to 8 or more. You discard Fortress itself and Gear Frame, which will allow you to revive Machina Fortress and putting the Gear Frame in your graveyard. When that happens, you activate Solidarity now. Now Solidarity will give all of them 800 more attack points, making Fortress 26, Red Gadget 21, and Fortress 33. You ideally would attack with the Red Gadget first over any of their defense position monsters. If the monster is able to get destroyed, now there's where the push happens. You attack with Machina Gear Frame for 2600, and then when you're attacking your opponent directly, like I said, for Limiter Removal, dealing well over 8,000 points of damage towards them. Now, if they do happen to drop a Gores or even a Tregiota at this point, it's not to say that your monster still can't beat over them, and if need be, in the end, you'll only be able to losing 1 monster. You just equip the Machina Gear Frame to your Fortress. The red gadget will get destroyed at the end phase, and so will the Fortress itself, but you won't lose out on that many cards, which is also a very good thing by the deck as well. Now, another way you could also go on by that opening is if you had the Fortress in hand, the Fortress on the field, and then decided to drop a gadget, you can add any of the yellow gadget to your hand, and that's another play. Then, equip the Gear Frame to your red gadget, and then play Giant Trunade to return it back to your hand. So that way you can reuse it for another future turns. And that really helps too, because it allows the card to be recycled and helped you to help add more cards to your hand. And it's like basically almost having like 4 Gear Frames when you go it off like that. And like I said, that's basically one of the few pushes that they have for it, but the deck is well built off 1-for-1s and is able to gain quite a bit of advantage just off simply summoning more and more monsters.